Was in Mobile, Alabama this week to watch the Senior Bowl practices. It all leads up to the Senior Bowl game and the American team walking it off against the national team with a walk-off, a touchdown. How about a Senior Bowl 7-pack of players who were at the Senior Bowl this week and practiced and played that would fit for the Houston Texans? What better place to start than the Senior Bowl game MVP, Jack Bech. Bech, the wide receiver from TCU, was fantastic all week, and then it showed up during the game. He caught the game-winning touchdown in an emotional week for him. 1 month ago today, losing his brother to the terrorist attack on Bourbon Street. Bech credited the support of the Senior Bowl, his teammates, the other competitors on the opposing Senior Bowl team, and everybody for the incredible week that he had. A great week for him. The football player, fantastic. The story, maybe even better. A story of resiliency and love between a couple of brothers. But let's talk about the football player. How would he fit on the Houston Texans? Well, how about an inside-outside wide receiver, a guy that relentlessly blocks on the outside, and a guy that gets offended if you call him 50-50 footballs? He likes to say they're more 75-25 headed his way. Man, I love the profile of Jack Bech for the Houston Texans. He's not as speedy as some of these other wide receivers in the draft, but his ability to just go up there and win as a physical receiver, and he can use his route running and his agility to set guys up and get open against defensive backs like safeties and maybe corners who aren't as fast, and certainly against linebackers that end up on him as well, should he bump down there into the slot. I really like Bech as a fit. The Texans need some producers at the wide receiver position. I mean, it just feels like a really, really fun fit if the Texans could end up with Jack Bech. Let's go with Jack Bech for the first of our Senior Bowl 7-pack of players that fit for the Houston Texans. Let's stay on offense, but let's go to the line of scrimmage. You nor I were pleased with the Houston Texans offensive line this year. You got to go out there and you got to find some offensive linemen. How about a big nasty from North Dakota State University? Zabel was the standout player at the Senior Bowl all week long in practices, got it done in the game as well. Played tackle for the Bison. Okay, but he's going to play interior at the NFL level. He played both guard spots and center at the Senior Bowl this week, and he did really well at all of them. If somebody got Zabel, he usually got them the next time in the one-on-one reps, and he played center in high school, so snapping the ball, it's not a foreign concept that he's got to learn. He's just got to get reacclimated, and he told me this week, it's like riding a bicycle. He's not worried about having to learn how to snap the football again. He's big, he's strong, and what I really love, and you see it in the Senior Bowl game as well as the team reps from the practice this week, when there's nobody around the block, Zabel goes and finds some work to do on opposing defenders. I love his mentality. I love his approach. And I know Nick Caserio hasn't always picked those smaller school guys. This guy's worth making an exception and helping out that Texans offensive line. Let's go with another small school guy and somebody who matched up with Zabel a little bit over the course of the week. One of my favorite defensive linemen from this week, Darius Alexander from Toledo. Last year it was Quinyon Mitchell as the Toledo standout at the Senior Bowl. This year, his former teammate Darius Alexander was a standout. All 3 days of practice, Alexander was giving those offensive linemen fits. He was strong. He was agile. He has an incredible build for interior defensive linemen, and he uses speed and quickness along with some of his strength. Man, I would just love to see what D'Amico Ryans could do with Darius Alexander, and he even mentioned this week when talking about the Houston Texans how much of a dream it would be to rush on the interior with Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson out there. Now, Alexander, he's improved his stock a lot. Bech and Zabel, those guys probably first-round guys, second-round guys if you get a little lucky. Alexander, before this week, man, Darius might have been a fourth or fifth-round pick. He's probably moving up the boards. I know one draft ranking had him outside the top 120. Now he's in the top 70 after the week at the Senior Bowl. Let's see how the draft process plays out. But Darius Alexander, defensive tackle from Toledo, in my Senior Bowl 7-pack of players that fit for the Texans. You want to talk about fit for the Texans from a mentality standpoint, from a versatility with his ability standpoint. How about linebacker Jack Kiser from Notre Dame? Look, the Fighting Irish played a very long season, as did the Ohio State Buckeyes. A lot of the Buckeyes guys no showing at the Senior Bowl after they got invited. Kiser, he told me I couldn't pass up practicing and getting ready for one more game as a college football player before I go and be a pro. NCAA's solo tackle leader this past season, Jack Kiser, in the Senior Bowl, has to go play safety because of some DBs dropping out of the game, and he goes and plays safety for a half when he's been a linebacker. You know what I loved about Kiser this week at the Senior Bowl? Incredible in coverage. Those one-on-one situations where linebackers got to go cover running backs, that's not how it actually works. You usually have offensive linemen, usually have other defenders to help you out. It's never just free release right away for the running back. He's right there at the line of scrimmage immediately going after you, and nobody's there to help you. That's not how it works. But Kiser handled himself pretty darn well over the course of the week in those coverage situations. And I love his mentality, a big-time leader at Notre Dame. And I actually talked to him about the leadership conversations that Marcus Freeman has had at Notre Dame, the head coach of Notre Dame. And Kiser said, look, everyone's a leader because everybody holds everyone accountable, and you can't get offended when somebody holds you accountable because they have to be willing to buy in to be able to be accountable when you want to hold them accountable as well. And of course, playing for a linebacker as his head coach at the college level, he loved the idea of playing for a linebacker as his head coach at the pro level as well. Notre Dame linebacker Jack Kiser in the Senior Bowl 7-pack. The SEC for the next 3. How about in Alabama, but a different spot in Alabama? We were in Mobile this week, but this guy played his college ball in Auburn. Auburn's running back, Jarquez Hunter. Oh, he was so good all week long. He's so physical with opponents. In the coverage one-on-one situations, he would go and get physical with the linebacker and then get away from him and succeed as a receiver running the football. He is so hard to bring down. The pass blocking was excellent from Hunter. He was incredible all week long in the practices. And then in the Senior Bowl game, he had a 3rd and long. I think it was a 2nd and long, 3rd and long. Basically, he brushed off 2-3 defenders and found himself with a 1st down to keep a drive alive for his team in the Senior Bowl game. Man, I love what he brought to the table. His mentality, his toughness, the versatility that he has as a running back. He'd be a fantastic compliment to Joe Mixon. And I bet you he could help you in a variety of ways right away on special teams too, with some of the toughness that he has displayed. I told you we're sticking in the SEC for the final 3. We're also sticking at the running back spot for the 6th spot on our Senior Bowl 7-pack. Oh, man. Trevor Etienne was the best pass-catching running back all week long at the Senior Bowl. The best pass-catching running back all week long at the Senior Bowl, and he was tough to cover, tough to slow down for opposing defenders, and he was incredible with the ball in his hands. He was probably better than some of the receivers catching the football this week at the Senior Bowl. And when you think about helping out right away and not necessarily having an immediate heavy workload with Joe Mixon because he's kind of a bell cow, but you think about some of the passing downs or maybe putting both running backs on the field at the same time to then really mix it up on the opposing defense. Man, Mixon catching the ball out of the backfield, Trevor Etienne catching the ball out of the backfield. And it gets kind of exciting And Etienne was really good at Georgia. He was awesome at the Senior Bowl this week, and he's going to be an immediate impact guy in the receiving game as a running back right away. And oh, by the way, he can tote the rock pretty well too. Wrapping it up, I told you, SEC, but we're also sticking with the Bulldogs, flipping over to the defensive side of the ball. Dan Jackson, man, he was a DAWG dog this week at the safety spot. Look, safeties have a really tough assignment at the Senior Bowl because they end up in one-on-ones against tight ends. They end up in one-on-ones against running backs. They end up in one-on-ones against receivers. You don't get an opportunity to really get a feel for your opponent because you're constantly changing your opponent each and every rep that you're out there. But Jackson held his own in some of the one-on-one stuff that he was asked to do, but in the team stuff, when he was directing traffic, when he was coming up and helping on run fills, when he was laying an absolute wallop on Jack Bech to jar the ball free from Bech on a near touchdown in one of the practices, man, Dan Jackson ended up as one of the top standouts this week, as voted on by running backs, wide receivers, tight ends that he had to go against. And again, those situations are not favorable for the defenders, and he made them favorable for him in those one-on-one matchups. So I loved what Dan Jackson brought to the table. You start thinking about the Texans safety room. Eric Murray is a free agent. MJ Stewart is a free agent. Jimmy Ward's injury history and Jalen Petrie's injury history. You know, he had an injury that ended his season this past year. You could use some depth, and Dan Jackson's not going to cost you a super high draft pick, but a big-time performer, a big school, so we know Caserio loves those Georgia guys as well. And, oh, how about Dan Jackson playing with former teammate Kamari Lassiter? Wouldn't that be pretty fun for him as well? Man, it could get fun in that secondary if you added another Bulldog to the equation. That wraps up the Senior Bowl 7-pack of Senior Bowl players that would be fun Houston Texans draft picks. Do you know of any Senior Bowl players that would be fun Houston Texans draft picks? Let me know in the comment section down below. Of course, check out Houston Football, where I did all my coverage, detailed, in-depth coverage of the Senior Bowl practices this week. A link to the third day recap is in the description down below, and that'll give you links to day 2 and day 1 as well. So you can catch up on anything and everything over at Houston Football, where I do all my writing about the Houston Texans and, of course, the draft process. The draft starts in Mobile is the slogan for the Senior Bowl, and the Senior Bowl week is over with the conclusion of the game on Saturday. These players got their draft season started, and these 7 guys would look great in deep steel blue, H-Town blue, battle red, Liberty white. Let's see what Nick Caserio can cook up in the draft in just a few months. And until then, we got you covered on everything here, the Houston Texans on this channel. From the draft process to the offensive coordinator process to anything and everything in between, you can catch it right here with SNL when I combo with Landry Locker on the Locker Room, and of course over on the Locker Room with Landry as well. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to go eat me a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup now, and I can't wait until we talk Texans again soon.